Hello students, today we'll be talking about Rabindranath Tagore's poem Where the Mind is Without Fear. The poem happens to be the 35th poem in the collection Gitanjali, which won him the Nobel Prize for Literature. The poem was originally first published in the year 1907 and later it was included in the verses Gitanjali in the year 1912. He won the prize in 1913. The poem deals with the feelings of the poet who speaks about nation's unity and all the features and factors that hinder the unification of the nation as one whole. Let's have a look at the poem first. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. The poet was quite young when he first wrote the poem. He was a college student. He was barely 22 years old. That itself says a lot about the revolutionary feelings the poet was carrying within himself at the time. He spoke of these things such as caste, religion, creed, gender, lack of education that divides or segregates people into classes or categories. What he tries to say through his verses is that every Indian, as a citizen, as a responsible person contributing actively to the growth of the nation, must overlook all these things and stand united with everybody around him or her so that the country can function properly together as a live unit. He talks about things like education. In the verse where knowledge is free, Tagore tries to bring across the fact that education was not accessible to everybody at the time. He speaks for the need of education in the people's hearts, in the people's minds, so that nation itself might think like one. Next, he speaks about fragments. The line where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, he tries to bring across the point of caste and gender discrimination. Discrimination or any kind of segregation on the basis of gender or caste must be overcome, must be done away with, is what Tagore tries to say in the poem. Narrow domestic walls refers to the narrowness of mind of the society of the age. When he talks about reason, he urges the countrymen to use their logic and common sense in judging, making decisions, and also in interacting with the fellow countrymen. He talks about a clear stream of reason which flows through the minds of the Indian people, his countrymen. He also speaks about truth. In the line where words come from the depths of truth, he urges his countrymen to be more truthful, to be more responsible for their actions, and to take credibility and be accountable. He speaks about freedom. Freedom was a was a luxury back at the time. So indeed, he speaks of freedom as paradise or heaven, and he directly addresses God or the Almighty as my Father. He addresses the Almighty as his Father because he sees God, he saw God as a parent, a caretaker, a person who understands you, knows you, and fulfills all your wishes. So he directly invokes God Almighty as his Father so that he can lead the countrymen into ever-widening thought and action. He speaks not just of truth in terms of words, but also in actions and thoughts. Thank you.